Elspeth Ravencroft's blood stains the virgin snow crimson as Lord Aldric Blackwood drives his boot into her ribs one final time. "You should have kept your mouth shut about the wolves, witch," he snarls. The 19-year-old lies broken beneath the full moon, her gift, the forbidden ability to speak with wolves, now a death sentence. 3 broken ribs, crushed left hand, skull fractured against frozen ground. In this medieval winter, hypothermia will claim her in 90 minutes. No one knows she's here in the Winterwood Forest. Her cottage sits a mile north, but she can't move, can't scream, can't even feel her fingers anymore. Aldric and his hunting party vanish into the darkness, confident their illegal poaching operation is safe from the witch who threatened to expose them. But deep in the forest, ancient silver eyes open. The Alpha has heard her silent cry across the mate bond they've shared for 7 years, and he's coming, with 47 wolves at his back. What Aldric doesn't know is that some of those wolves walk on 2 legs under the full moon.
Elspeth Ravencroft's first conscious thought was pain. It radiated from her right side in waves so intense that breathing felt like swallowing broken glass. Her healer's mind cataloged the damage automatically, clinically, the way her grandmother had taught her. 3 ribs, maybe 4. The sharp, stabbing sensation with each shallow breath meant at least one had cracked clean through. If the jagged edge shifted wrong, it would puncture her lung. She'd drown in her own blood long before the cold claimed her. The cold, that was worse than the ribs. Elspeth forced her eyes open. The world swam in doubled images, twin moons hanging in a star-scattered sky, 2 versions of the ancient pine trees surrounding her. Head trauma then, skull fracture possibly. She'd seen men die from less, their brains swelling until consciousness simply stopped. Her left hand lay at an unnatural angle, fingers already purple and swollen. Crushed when Aldric's boot came down. She tried to wiggle them. Nothing. The nerves were damaged or severed. Stage 1 hypothermia begins at 95 degrees. Her grandmother's voice echoed through her mind, steady and clinical. Shivering, confusion, loss of fine motor control. Stage 2 at 93, violent tremors, muscle rigidity, slurred speech. Stage 3 at 90 degrees, that's when the heart forgets how to beat. Elspeth was already shivering, violent tremors that made her broken ribs grind together, each movement a fresh agony. Her thin healer's cloak, designed for walking between cottages in autumn, offered no protection against the brutal medieval winter. The snow beneath her was stealing her body heat, conducting warmth away from her core with ruthless efficiency. She calculated quickly. 90 minutes, perhaps 2 hours if she was fortunate. Then her heart would simply stop, and they'd find her frozen come spring thaw. If anyone bothered to look. She tried to move. Her cottage was north, perhaps a mile through the forest. If she could crawl, if she could drag herself even halfway, maybe someone would find her before dawn. Elspeth dug her right elbow into the frozen ground and pulled. Her body shifted 6 inches. Pain exploded through her torso, white-hot and blinding. The broken ribs shifted, grinding against something soft inside. She tasted copper, blood in her mouth, internal bleeding then. A scream tore from her throat, lost immediately in the vast indifference of the Winterwood. She collapsed back into the snow, gasping, each breath a razor cutting deeper. She couldn't do it, couldn't even save herself. 12 years old, standing in Thornhaven Square, smoke still rising from the stake, her mother's body blackened and twisted, barely recognizable. The priest's voice booming, "This is God's justice for witches who consort with beasts. That all who possess the devil's gifts take heed."
Elspeth had run into the forest that night, run until her legs gave out, and wept until no tears remained. She'd been alone ever since. And she would die alone, just like her mother, just like everyone cursed with the Ravencroft gift. No, not yet, not without trying. Elspeth closed her eyes and reached out with her gift, the telepathic sense that had marked her bloodline as pursed for generations. She felt the forest's consciousness, the small minds of rabbits huddled in warrens, the sleeping birds in their nests, the deer bedded down in sheltered groves, and wolves, always wolves. 3 packs within her range, but miles away, too far. They couldn't reach her in time, even if they understood her need. But there was one wolf, one mind she'd touched 7 years ago, when she was barely more than a child herself. A silver-furred pup caught in an iron trap, leg mangled, infection spreading. She'd spent hours freeing him, cleaning the wound, whispering comfort while he whimpered in pain. His eyes had been silver, impossibly, beautifully silver, and when he'd looked at her, she'd felt something shift in her soul, a connection deeper than the gift, older than words. She'd named him Fenrir and set him free. Elspeth meeched out into the night, pouring every ounce of her remaining strength into the call. Not words, the gift didn't work that way with wolves, but feelings, memories, desperate need. Fenrir, if you're still alive, if you remember me, I'm sorry I never told you what you mean to me. I'm sorry I never came looking for you. I'm sorry I'm dying without ever seeing those silver eyes again. The forest was silent. The wind rustled through frozen pine needles. Her core temperature dropped another degree. The shivering was getting worse, more violent. Soon it would stop entirely, and that would be the beginning of the end. Then she felt it. Not words, not even thoughts exactly, but emotions crashing into her consciousness like a wave against rocks. Recognition, instant and absolute. Fury, incandescent rage at whoever had hurt her, and beneath it all something that made her broken heart stutter. Fierce, protective, all-consuming determination. He remembered. He was coming. Elspeth's lips curved into the smallest smile as her eyes drifted closed. Hold on, she told herself. Just hold on a little longer. The silver-eyed wolf hasn't forgotten you after all.
The sound came first. Not footsteps, wolves moved too silently for that, but the whisper of displaced air, the subtle shift of snow compressed under massive weight. Elspeth's eyes fluttered open to see shadows materializing from the tree line. 8 of them, darker than the winter night, moving with liquid grace that seemed almost supernatural. No, not almost. They were enormous. The smallest stood chest-high to a man, far larger than any natural wolf Elspeth had ever encountered in the Winterwood. Their coordination was too perfect, too purposeful. They moved like soldiers in formation, flanking positions already established, eyes scanning the clearing for threats with tactical precision that made her healer's mind stumble over impossibility. Then the largest stepped into the moonlight, and Elspeth forgot how to breathe. Silver-white fur rippled over muscles that belonged on something carved from stone, not born from flesh. He stood nearly as tall as a pony, his massive head level with where a man's chest would be. But it was his eyes that stopped her heart. Silver, pure molten silver, glowing with their own light in the darkness. Eyes she'd seen once before, filled with pain and gratitude, looking up at her from a mangled leg caught in iron jaws. Fenrir? The name came out as barely a whisper. The wolf's ears swiveled forward. He approached slowly, carefully, as though afraid she might shatter. When he was close enough that she could feel heat radiating from his body, he stopped and lowered his massive head. Those silver eyes met hers, and through her gift, Elspeth felt something that made her mind reel. Not simple animal emotion,
Not the uncomplicated affection and loyalty she'd felt from other wolves. This was complex, layered, vast. Strategic thinking, self-awareness, memories stretching back years, and beneath it all, a connection so deep and primal that it felt like someone had reached into her chest and wrapped fingers around her soul. "You're not just a wolf," she whispered. The response didn't come in sounds. It came directly into her mind, resonant and clear as spoken words, carrying both human intelligence and the wild instinct of the beast. "I never was, little healer." Elspeth's breath caught. The other 7 wolves arranged themselves in a perfect defensive perimeter, facing outward, protecting. Military precision, deliberate strategy, impossible for animals. "I've been yours since the day you freed me from iron and silver," Fenrir continued, lowering himself to lie beside her. His body pressed against her frozen side, and blessed warmth flooded through her. "I am Werewolf. I am Alpha, and I am your mate." Werewolf. The word felt strange on her tongue. Legends, stories told to frighten children. Except he was here, real and warm and impossibly alive, sharing memories through their bond faster than speech. 7 years of watching her from the shadows, driving away the drunk who'd cornered her on the forest path 2 winters ago. She'd found the man the next morning, clawed and terrified, babbling about demon wolves. The fresh deer carcasses that appeared near her cottage during the harshest winters when game was scarce and she was starving. The sense of protected, guarded, even when she walked the forest paths alone at midnight. Always him, always Fenrir. 7 years, Elspeth breathed. "You've been watching me for 7 years?" "I knew you had the old blood." Fenrir's mental voice carried warmth, affection, something deeper she didn't have words for. "The first Ravencroft was born of werewolf and human union 1,000 years ago. Your gift isn't a curse, little healer. It's your birthright. You were always meant to be ours." The other wolves shifted closer, forming a second layer of warmth around her. Their minds touched hers through the gift, not as clearly as Fenrir's, but enough to feel their acceptance, their recognition. They'd known what she was before she did. "The mate bond," she whispered, understanding dawning. "That's what I felt when I freed you. That's why I could never forget your eyes." "The bond chose us both that day." Fenrir's tongue gently cleaned the blood from her face, tender despite his massive size. "You were 12. I was barely past my first transformation. Neither of us understood. But I've waited, little healer. Waited for you to grow. Waited for the right moment. I would have waited forever if you'd asked." Tears froze on her cheeks. All those years alone, thinking herself cursed, fearing her gift would bring only death like it had for her mother. And all along she'd had a mate waiting in the forest, a protector, an alpha who'd claimed her heart with a single grateful look 7 years ago. "Lord Aldric," she gasped, remembering. "He'll come back. He can't let me live. I know about his poaching, his plans for the Winterwood." "He will come," Fenrir's mental voice hardened to steel. "And when he does, he'll learn what happens to those who harm what belongs to the pack." The 8 wolves raised their heads as one. The howl that erupted shattered the winter silence, layered with harmonics no natural wolf could produce, resonant with supernatural power that made the snow tremble and the ancient pines sway. It wasn't a sound, it was a declaration, a summoning, a promise of violence to come. Elspeth felt the howl travel through the forest, bouncing off distant mountains, carrying for miles through the crystalline air. And from the darkness beyond, answers began to echo back. More werewolves, more of Fenrir's pack. They were coming, all of them.
They came like shadows given form, materializing from the darkness in waves. First, 5 massive shapes emerged from the eastern mountains, their fur dusted with snow from the high peaks. Then 7 more from the southern moors, lean and rangy, moving with the tireless endurance of distance runners. 12 crashed through the western tree line, larger than the others, carrying the salt spray scent of the coastlands.
Finally, 17 descended from the northern tundra, white and gray as winter itself, nearly invisible against the snow. 47 wolves total, 47 pairs of eyes reflecting moonlight, amber, gold, green, and silver, all fixed on Elspeth with startling intelligence. Through her gift, she felt the truth of them slam into her consciousness. Every single one carried human awareness within wolf form, complex thoughts, personalities, memories spanning decades, perhaps centuries. This wasn't a pack of animals answering some primal call. This was an army responding to their commander. They arranged themselves with military precision. The first 8 formed the inner ring, closest to Elspeth and Fenrir. The newcomers created 2 more concentric circles, facing outward, covering every approach. Warriors on the perimeter, she realized, scouts at the cardinal points. Healers, she could feel their gift, similar to hers but different, positioned near the center. A complete civilization hidden within wolf form. One of the original 8, a battle-scarred gray wolf missing half an ear, stepped forward. His body rippled, bones cracking and reforming in a way that made Elspeth's healer instincts scream impossibility. He didn't fully transform, stopping halfway, wolf head and fur, but torso elongating, front legs becoming muscular arms. When he spoke, his voice was gravelly, roughened by a throat not quite meant for human speech. "The pack has answered, Alpha." His eyes flicked to Elspeth with something between curiosity and concern. "But the council will not approve, revealing ourselves to a human, even one with the gift, after what her kind did to us, the burnings, the hunts." Fenrir's growl cut through the night like a blade, deep, resonant, absolute. Every wolf in the clearing froze. "She is not just human, she is my mate. The bond chose her 7 years ago. Any who challenge this answers to me." The gray wolf, Grimwald, Elspeth sensed his name through the bond, bowed his head in submission. "Of course, Alpha. I only meant, the council has forbidden contact for 3 centuries. They'll demand your head for this. Then they can try to take it." Fenrir's mental voice softened as he looked at Elspeth. "She's worth any price." One of the wolves from the eastern mountains, younger than the others with russet fur, approached cautiously. Her mental voice was shy, uncertain. "You healed my sister last winter. When the hunters shot her, you found her bleeding by the river. You never knew she was like us. You helped anyway." Elspeth's mind raced back. The injured wolf with the arrow in her shoulder. She'd spent 3 hours removing the bolt, cleaning the wound, dosing the animal with precious herbs she could barely afford to spare. "That was your sister? Is she—" "She lives because of you." The young wolf, Sira, pressed her nose gently to Elspeth's hand. "You've helped so many of us over the years. We remember. All of us remember." More wolves approached, forming a living blanket around her. Their combined body heat was astonishing, driving back the deadly cold that had been stealing her life. Elspeth felt her core temperature stabilize, then slowly begin to rise. 90 degrees, 92, 94. The violent shivering eased. Her thoughts cleared. A scout from the coastlands sent information through the pack bond, images and sensations rather than words. Aldric and his men at the Dancing Boar Inn, 2 miles south, drunk, laughing, boasting about teaching the witch a lesson, planning to check the body come dawn to ensure the cold had finished their work. "He'll come back," Elspeth whispered. "When he realizes I might survive, he'll come back to finish it. He can't let me testify about the poaching, about his plans to clear-cut the Winterwood." "Let him come." Fenrir's response carried cold promise. "He'll find more than a dying girl when he returns." Grimwald shifted uneasily, his half-transformed body tense. "Alpha, if we fight humans, if we kill them, the council will have no choice but to act. They'll see it as breaking the covenant. They'll send executioners." The council made their laws to protect us from persecution. Fenrir's silver eyes blazed. But I will not hide while my mate bleeds out to satisfy their fear. The humans already burn and hang those with the gift. They already hunt our kind in secret. The covenant has been broken for generations. We've just been too afraid to admit it. Through her gift, Elspeth felt the pack's divided emotions. Some agreed with Fenrir, those younger ones, those who'd lost family to human violence. Others shared Grimwald's caution, remembering older horrors. All of them, though, shared one common thread: absolute loyalty to their alpha, and now, it seemed, to her. A wolf from the northern tundra, massive and white as fresh snow, sent a question through the bond. "What do you want us to do, alpha female?" The title hit Elspeth like a physical blow. Alpha female. They were accepting her, not just tolerating Fenrir's choice, but embracing it. These ancient, powerful beings were offering her a place in their hierarchy. Before she could respond, new sounds drifted through the forest, distant, human, the jangle of harnesses, the creak of wagon wheels, torches flickering through the trees. Aldric was returning early, and he wasn't alone.
Torchlight turned the winter forest into a hellscape of dancing shadows and orange flame. 12 men emerged from the tree line, their breath forming clouds in the freezing air. Aldric Blackwood led them, his fine wool cloak and polished sword marking him as nobility even in the darkness. Behind him walked Brother Theron, the traveling monk whose sermons had filled Thornhaven's church for the past month, all fire and brimstone about purging the devil's servants from God's clean earth. They stopped dead when they saw the wolves. 47 pairs of eyes reflected their torchlight back at them. 47 massive bodies arranged in perfect defensive circles around the girl they'd left for dead. The silence was absolute, broken only by the crackle of flames and the harsh breathing of frightened men. "Sweet Christ," one of the hunters whispered, making a warding sign. Aldric's mind raced. This wasn't the plan. The plan had been simple: return after midnight, confirm the witch was dead, drag her body deeper into the woods, maybe arrange some claw marks, scatter wolf tracks. By morning, tragic accident. The church would declare the Winterwood cursed, his father's timber company would receive emergency logging rights to cleanse the forest, and the Bradford fortune would be saved. But this was either disaster or opportunity. Brother Theron's eyes gleamed with something beyond sanity as he stepped forward, crucifix raised. "Behold!" His voice rang through the clearing like a bell. "The beast speaker commands demons. The witch lives, surrounded by her unholy servants. This is proof of Satan's work in our midst." "She's controlling them somehow," Aldric said, his voice carrying to his men. To Thornhaven's hunters who'd known Elspeth their whole lives, who'd benefited from her healing, who might hesitate to murder her in cold blood. But killing a witch who commanded demon wolves, that was heroism. "Kill them all, wolves, witch, everything. We'll be heroes who saved Thornhaven from a monster." The men raised their crossbows, not simple hunting weapons. These were designed for the largest game, with heavy draw weights and cruel barbed tips that gleamed silver in the torchlight. Through the pack bond, Fenrir recognized and dreaded silver, the one metal that could truly harm werewolves, that burned their supernatural flesh like acid. She'd heard the old stories without understanding them. Now comprehension crashed down with horrifying clarity. Fire purifies the devil's creatures. Brother Theron pulled out a flask of what he called holy water, splashing it across the snow between his men and the wolves. The scent hit Elspeth's newly enhanced senses. Oil. Lamp oil. He produced blessed torches from his pack, already burning. "In the name of the Father—" "Now!"
Aldric shouted. 12 crossbow strings released as one. Silver bolts screamed through the air. 3 found their marks. A coastal wolf went down howling, the silver bolt burning through his shoulder like a brand. One of the northern pack collapsed, silver buried in her flank, smoke rising from the wound as supernatural flesh tried and failed to heal around the cursed metal. Grimwald roared as a bolt glanced off his ribs, leaving a searing trail. The pack's fury hit Elspeth like a physical wave. They wanted to charge, to rip apart the men who dared wound their own. Only Fenrir's command held them back, but she could feel his control fraying. Another volley, this time aimed directly at Fenrir. Elspeth didn't think. Her broken ribs screamed as she lurched to her feet, stumbling forward to place herself between the crossbows and her mate. Pain exploded through her torso with each movement, but something else rose within her, something fierce and primal that had nothing to do with her healer's training. "Stop!" her voice carried across the clearing with unexpected force. Every man froze, crossbows half raised for the third volley. "I am Elspeth Ravencroft, last of the gifted bloodline." The lie came easily, desperately, anything to protect the werewolf secret. "These wolves answer to me. They are mine to command, mine to protect. Leave now or face their judgment." Through their bond, she felt Fenrir's protest. "Don't, you'll condemn yourself." "I won't let them kill you, not after 7 years of waiting, not now." Brother Theron's face split into a terrible smile. "Did you hear? She confesses. She admits her witchcraft before God and men." He turned to the hunters. "This is no murder, brothers. This is righteous execution." "Witness her confession." Aldric seized the moment, his voice ringing with false authority. "By the laws of church and crown, I claim the right of immediate judgment. Elspeth Ravencroft, you stand accused of witchcraft, consorting with demons, and crimes against the natural order. The sentence is death by fire." The men with Brother Theron threw their oil-soaked torches. Flames erupted across the snow, creating a burning barrier between humans and wolves. Through the fire, Aldric raised his crossbow one final time, aiming not at Fenrir, but at Elspeth's heart. "Any last words, witch?" Elspeth stood straighter despite her broken body, despite the flames, despite the certain death aimed at her chest. She met Aldric's eyes without flinching. Just one. Run. Fenrir's howl shattered the night, but this time it wasn't a call for help. It was a declaration of war.
Aldric's finger tightened on the crossbow trigger. "For God and Thornhaven, the witch dies." Fenrir's body began to change. The sound came first, bones cracking like green wood in fire, a wet, visceral noise that made several hunters retch. His massive wolf form rippled, silver fur flowing like liquid across expanding muscles. Front legs elongated, paws reshaping into clawed hands with opposable thumbs. His spine stretched vertical, forcing him upright. The muzzle shortened but didn't disappear, creating something caught between wolf and man that belonged to neither world. Within seconds, a 7-foot werewolf stood on 2 legs before them. Silver fur covered corded muscles that looked like carved from marble. His hands ended in black claws as long as daggers. The wolf head remained, but the eyes, those burning silver eyes, held an intelligence that was utterly, terrifyingly human. When he spoke, his voice was deep and resonant, layered with a growl that vibrated through Elspeth's chest. "You dare threaten my mate." Behind him, 46 wolves transformed in a synchronized wave. The sound was deafening, hundreds of bones breaking and reforming, flesh tearing and re-knitting. Within moments, an army of werewolves surrounded the clearing, each one a perfect fusion of human cunning and wolf savagery. 8 of Aldric's men broke and ran, screaming into the forest.
3 more collapsed to their knees, weapons forgotten, minds shattered by the impossibility before them. Only Aldric and Brother Theron remained standing, though the Lord's face had gone white as bone. "Alpha, no!" Grimwald's half-transformed form trembled with urgency. "You'll expose us all. The Council will execute you for this. 300 years we've hidden, and you destroy it in one night. Then I'll die knowing I protected what's mine." Fenrir never took his eyes off Aldric. Some things are worth any price. Through their bond, Elspeth felt the magnitude of his sacrifice. Werewolves had survived by remaining myth, by letting humans dismiss sightings as legend and madness. This revelation, witnessed by 12 men from Thornhaven, would spread like wildfire. Churches across the continent would mobilize, armies would march, the hunts would begin again, worse than before. He was choosing her over his entire species. Brother Theron raised his crucifix with shaking hands, his voice rising to a shriek. "Demons, servants of Satan, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, I command you back to hell." Fenrir laughed. The sound was chilling, utterly without humor. "We're not demons, priest. We're werewolves. We were here long before your god walked the earth, and you've just declared war on the wrong pack." Aldric's hand moved to his belt, drawing a longsword that gleamed silver in the torchlight. Not steel, pure silver, forged at terrible expense. He'd been hunting werewolves all along, Elspeth realized with horror. The poaching, the clear-cut plans, all of it a cover for something darker. "You want her?" Aldric's voice steadied, greed overcoming fear. A werewolf pelt would be worth a fortune, an alpha's pelt, kingdoms would pay. Then take her, but you'll have to go through me first. Fenrir's lips pulled back, revealing fangs as long as knives. "So be it. Single combat, your champion against mine. If you win, the pack retreats, and you keep your life. If I win, you confess your crimes to Thornhaven's magistrate, the poaching, the murder attempt, all of it. And when I kill you," Aldric circled slowly, sword raised, "when I mount your head on my wall, then you'll be the man who slew an alpha werewolf." Fenrir mirrored his movement, claws flexing. They charged simultaneously. The combat was brutal and beautiful. Fenrir moved with supernatural speed, closing the distance in a blur. Aldric was ready, decades of sword training guiding his blade in a perfect arc. Silver bit into Fenrir's shoulder, and he roared, smoke rising from the wound as flesh burned. But his claws raked across Aldric's chest, shredding fine wool and the skin beneath. They separated, circled, attacked again. Fenrir's strength was overwhelming, but the silver sword made him cautious. Every cut burned like acid, preventing his supernatural healing. Aldric fought with desperate cunning, using his smaller size to stay mobile, aiming for tendons and joints. "Fenrir!" Elspeth screamed, as silver opened a gash across his ribs. Aldric saw his opening. He threw something from his belt pouch, silver powder, catching the torchlight as it flew. Fenrir instinctively closed his eyes. The powder hit his face, and he howled in agony, clawing at his own muzzle as the silver burned. Blinded, Aldric drove forward with his sword aimed at Fenrir's heart. At the last second, Fenrir twisted. The blade missed his heart, but plunged deep into his chest, erupting through his back, silver poisoning his blood, burning him from the inside. The great werewolf fell to his knees. "No!" Elspeth screamed, tore through the night. She tried to run to him, but her broken ribs sent her stumbling. Through their bond, she felt his life draining away, felt the silver corruption spreading through his supernatural body like rot through wood. Aldric wrenched the sword free. "Any last words, beast?" Fenrir raised his head, silver eyes dimming but still fierce.
Just one. He looked past Aldric to Elspeth. Run.
Fenrir collapsed, silver spreading through his veins like ice. The sword had missed his heart by inches, but silver didn't need a killing blow. It would poison him slowly, agonizingly, until his supernatural body simply gave up. Elspeth didn't think. Broken ribs forgotten, hypothermia irrelevant, she threw herself across his massive form. Her arms barely reached around his chest, but she held him as tightly as her shattered body allowed. "No, take me instead. I'm the one you want." Aldric stood over them both, silver sword raised high. Blood dripped from the blade, Fenrir's blood, smoking where it touched the snow. "As you wish, witch. You'll burn together in hell." He drove the blade down with both hands. Fenrir's eyes snapped open. With the last of his supernatural strength, he rolled, pulling Elspeth beneath his body, curling around her like a shield. The silver sword punched through his back, through muscle and bone and organ, and erupted from his chest directly into Elspeth's heart. She gasped. Not from pain, there was no time for pain, just shock, cold spreading from her chest outward, faster than the hypothermia, absolute and final. "This is what love is," she thought, as her vision dimmed. "Not poems or promises. This, choosing their life over yours." Time seemed to stop. Aldric stumbled backward, his sword still buried in both bodies. The pack's howl rose as one, 46 voices braided into a sound of such anguish that the ancient pines trembled. Grimwald transformed fully, his massive werewolf form charging across the clearing with murder in his eyes. Aldric ran. Brother Theron was already gone, his torches and holy water abandoned, his zealotry finally overcome by survival instinct. The remaining hunters fled after them, crashing through the forest in blind panic. The pack let them go. None of that mattered now. Fenrir shifted back to wolf form with trembling effort, the change making the sword wound worse. He didn't care. In wolf form, he could curl around Elspeth properly, could press his muzzle to her face, could feel her last shallow breaths against his fur. "Why?" His mental voice was broken, ragged. "You were already dying. This changed nothing." Elspeth's hand, impossibly heavy, lifted to touch his face. Her fingers traced the scar above his left eye, the one she'd cleaned and bandaged 7 years ago. "It changed everything." Blood bubbled at her lips. "I love you, Fenrir. I think I always have. Since that day in the trap, when you looked at me like I was worth saving. 7 years I've watched you. 7 years I've loved you from the shadows, too afraid to reveal myself, too afraid you'd reject what I am. I should have told you. I should have given you the choice. I'm choosing now." Her smile was peaceful, radiant even in death. "I choose you. I'll always choose you." Her eyes closed. Her chest stopped rising. Through their bond, Fenrir felt the exact moment her heart gave its final beat. The howl that tore from his throat wasn't wolf or human, but something beyond either, pure grief given voice. It shattered the winter silence, echoed off distant mountains, seemed to crack the very sky. Ice fell from tree branches, snow tumbled from peaks miles away. The full moon itself seemed to dim. Every werewolf in the clearing dropped to one knee, heads bowed, honoring a human who died protecting their alpha, honoring the mate who'd chosen love over survival. Syra's young voice, thick with tears, broke the silence. She was the only human who ever showed us kindness. She healed us, protected us, never asked for anything in return. The young werewolf's body shook with sobs. "She can't be gone. It's not fair."
Grimwald approached slowly, blood still dripping from where Aldric's silver bolt had grazed him. He transformed partially, enough to speak. "Alpha, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." His gravelly voice cracked. "She has seconds, not minutes. Not even our fastest runner could reach the village healer in time. And even if we could—" He didn't finish. They both knew. No human healer could fix a silver blade through the heart. Fenrir didn't move, couldn't move. His world had narrowed to the girl dying in his arms, the mate he'd waited 7 years to claim, now slipping away before they'd had even a chance. Then Grimwald spoke the words that changed everything. "There is one way." His voice was careful, weighted. "The mate bond. You could share your essence, transform her." Fenrir's head snapped up. "It's forbidden, the highest law. Human transformations always fail. They die in agony or lose their minds to the beast." "She's not fully human." Grimwald gestured to the 46 wolves still surrounding them. "She has the old blood, the Ravencroft gift. She's descended from the first union, Alpha. She might survive what others couldn't." Another werewolf, one of the northern pack, spoke up. "The council will exile you, execute you. This breaks our most sacred law, the one written after the purges, after humans burned our mates and children." Fenrir looked down at Elspeth's pale face, at the blood soaking her healer's cloak, at the gentle smile still on her lips even in death. "Then let them come." His voice was steel and sorrow. "I will not lose her, not after waiting 7 years, not after she chose me over her own life." He transformed halfway, just enough to have hands. He cradled her face, bent his head to her throat, and bit down where the mate bond pulsed strongest.
Fenrir's fangs pierced the soft flesh of Elspeth's throat, where the mate bond pulsed strongest. Not to drain, but to share. His blood flowed into her veins, carrying with it the essence of what he was, wolf and human, supernatural and ancient, power distilled into liquid fire. For Elspeth, death had been peaceful, a soft darkness welcoming as sleep. Then came the fire. It started where his blood touched hers, a burning that made hypothermia feel like a gentle kiss. The fire spread through her veins, igniting every nerve, rewriting every cell. She would have screamed if she'd had breath, her back arched, body convulsing in the snow. Through the agony, she felt him, not just Fenrir's presence through their bond, but his actual consciousness merging with hers, 2 souls crashing together like waves, human reason mixing with wolf instinct, her healer's knowledge braiding with his predator's awareness. They were becoming one thing, something neither had been separately. The silver sword in her chest began to smoke. Her body rejected it with violent force, supernatural healing treating the blessed metal like poison. With a wet sound, the blade was expelled from her flesh. The wound beneath began to close, skin knitting, bone fusing, muscle regenerating at impossible speed. Her hair, dark as midnight since birth, began to change at the roots. Silver white spread from her scalp outward, the color of moonlight on snow, the color of Fenrir's fur. Her bones cracked and reformed, becoming denser, stronger. Muscles burned as they reshaped themselves into something more than human. When her eyes snapped open, they glowed pure silver. Elspeth gasped, lungs filling with winter air that she could suddenly taste, pine sap and snow melt, wolf musk and human fear, the distant smoke of Thornhaven's hearths 8 miles south. She could hear everything. Heartbeats from the 46 werewolves surrounding her, small rodents burrowing under the snow, the wind whispering secrets through the ancient pines. She sat up too fast and the world blurred. One moment she was lying in Fenrir's arms, the next she was 10 feet away,
having moved faster than thought. What? She looked down at her hands. They were hers, still human, still the healer's hands that had set broken bones and mixed poultices. But when she flexed her fingers, black claws extended from beneath her nails, razor-sharp, deadly as any blade. She thought them away in panic, and they retracted, leaving her hands human again. "What did you do to me?" The question came out as a whisper. Fenrir transformed to his half-form, the one could speak. His silver eyes were wet with tears, but filled with fierce joy. "I gave you what I am, made you what you were always meant to be, my mate, my equal, my alpha female." Alpha female. Through her newly awakened senses, Elspeth could feel the pack bond, 46 threads of connection linking her to every werewolf in the clearing. She could sense their emotions as clearly as her own. Grimwald's cautious hope, Syra's unbridled joy, the older wolves' fear mixed with awe. "I can feel them." Elspeth pressed her hand to her chest where the sword wound had been. Smooth skin, not even a scar. "I can feel all of them, their hearts, their thoughts, their—" She gasped as the full weight of the pack consciousness crashed into her mind. Centuries of memories, dozens of individual perspectives, all trying to share themselves at once. "Easy." Fenrir placed his clawed hand over hers. "Breathe. Let it settle. The bond takes time to master." Elspeth focused on his voice, used it as an anchor. Gradually, the other minds faded to a background hum. She could still sense them, but they no longer overwhelmed her. She stood, testing her new body. Her broken ribs were healed. The crushed hand was whole. Even the head trauma had vanished as if never existed. She felt strong, not just healthy, but powerful in a way she'd never imagined. She turned to face a tree and threw a tentative punch. The ancient pine exploded. Splinters flew in every direction. The massive trunk toppled with a groan, crashing through his neighbors. "Oh!" Elspeth stared at her fist. "Oh!" Half-human reason, half-wolf instinct, the bridge between both worlds. You're not what we are, alpha female. You're something new, something we haven't seen in 1,000 years. Syra bounded forward in full wolf form, then transformed to her half-state, young face split in a grin. "We have an alpha female at last! A true one! Not just an alpha's mate, but—" The sound of bells cut her off, distant but growing closer, the alarm bells of Thornhaven ringing in the night. Through her enhanced hearing, Elspeth caught voices carried on the wind. Aldric's voice hoarse with shouting. "The witch lives! She commands wolf demons! They killed my men, burned them with hellfire! We must purge the forest before they attack the village!" Brother Theron's zealous shriek. "Gather every able man! Bring torches, weapons, holy water! We march at dawn to cleanse this cursed wood!" Elspeth's enhanced nose caught the scent on the wind, torch smoke and steel, fierce sweat and righteous anger. At least 40 men, maybe more, being rallied for war. She looked at Fenrir, at the pack surrounding them, at the forest that had sheltered them both. Her old life was over. The old healer who'd wanted only to help was dead. But standing in her place was something fiercer, stronger, and with the power to protect what she loved. "They're coming for us," she said quietly. "All of us." Fenrir moved to stand beside her, his clawed hand finding hers. "Then we face them together."
40 torches turned the pre-dawn darkness into flickering orange chaos. The mob emerged from the forest path like an army of angry fireflies, farmers with pitchforks, blacksmiths with hammers, hunters with bows, nearly every able-bodied man from Thornhaven, their faces twisted with fear and righteous fury. Aldric Blackwood led them, his fine cloak torn and bloodied, silver sword raised high. "The witch lives! She commands wolf demons! They murdered my men in cold blood! We must burn the forest before they attack our homes, our children!" Brother Theron stood at his shoulder, crucifix gleaming in the torchlight. "God calls us to cleanse this evil. Every demon must be purged, every cursed creature destroyed." Through the pack bond, Elspeth felt the werewolves' divided response. The warriors wanted blood, fangs and claws against those who dared wound their alpha. The elders urged retreat into the deep forest to preserve the secret that had kept them alive for centuries. All of them looked to Fenrir for orders, but Fenrir was looking at her. "Your choice, alpha female," his mental voice whispered through their bond. "I'll follow your lead." Elspeth stepped forward into the torchlight. Fenrir moved with her, his massive, half-transformed form at her side. Behind them, 46 werewolves emerged from the shadows, some in full wolf form, others in their terrifying hybrid state. A wall of supernatural power that could tear through the mob in seconds. The men of Thornhaven froze, weapons trembling in their hands. When Elspeth spoke, her voice carried supernatural resonance that made the very air vibrate. "I am Elspeth Ravencroft. You've called me witch, outcast, demon speaker." Her silver eyes swept across the crowd, meeting each gaze without flinching. "You're right. I am different, but I'm not your enemy." She gestured to the werewolves behind her. "These are not demons. They're werewolves, an ancient people who've lived in these forests for thousands of years. They've never attacked Thornhaven, never harmed your children." Her voice grew stronger. "The wolves you feared, they've protected your livestock from true predators, culled diseased deer to keep your herds healthy, driven away bandits who would have raided your farms." "Lies!" Aldric's voice cracked. "She's bewitched you all. Can't you see?" "That man," Elspeth pointed directly at him, "slaughtered wolf packs for sport, planned to clear-cut the Winterwood for profit, and when I threatened to expose his crimes, he beat me unconscious and left me to freeze." She lifted her voice so it carried to the back of the mob. "He tried to murder me. That is not the action of a godly man seeking justice. That is the action of a criminal protecting his secrets." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, uncertain, wavering. A woman pushed forward, Marin Cooper, whose daughter had nearly died of fever 2 winters past. "She saved my Clara when our own healer gave up, sat with her 3 days and nights, never asked for payment." Her voice shook but held firm. "Witch or not, she's only ever helped us." "She delivered my son," another voice from the back. "Treated my father's wound when it went bad. Never turned anyone away, no matter how poor." Aldric's face went purple with rage. "You fools! She's one of them now! Look at her eyes! That's not human!" He charged forward, silver sword raised. Elspeth didn't move. When the blade came down, she caught it bare-handed. The silver burned, but not like it should have. Her hybrid nature resisted the cursed metal better than pure werewolf. She felt the pain, acid burning through her palm, but her supernatural strength held. She squeezed, and the blessed blade shattered like glass. Enough. Her voice dropped to something cold and absolute. No more violence, no more death. She released the broken sword, and it fell smoking to the snow. "I propose a trial before Thornhaven's magistrate. Let Fenrir and Aldric both testify. Let human law decide who speaks truth." "I answer to God, not mortal law," Brother Theron shrieked, but his voice had lost its earlier conviction. Several of his followers were backing away, torches lowering. "Aldric Blackwood," new voice cut through the chaos. Magistrate Oswin rode into the clearing on horseback, flanked by 10 town guards in proper armor.
The old judge's face was stern as carved granite. "You stand accused of attempted murder, conspiracy to defraud the church, and inciting violence based on false testimony. Surrender your weapon." "Magistrate, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly." Oswin dismounted, with the stiff movements of a man who'd spent 40 years dispensing justice. "Young Marin Cooper came to my door an hour past, told me everything. How you've been spreading lies about the witch to cover your poaching, how you tried to steal church timber rights through Brother Theron's influence." His eyes were flint. "Guards, arrest them both." Brother Theron tried to run. 2 guards caught him before he made 3 steps. Aldric looked at the mob, at the werewolves, at the broken sword in the snow. He dropped to his knees, beaten. As the guards clapped chains on both men, Fenrir gave a low, rumbling signal through the pack bond. The werewolves melted back into the forest like smoke, vanishing so quickly that several villagers gasped, trusting Elspeth to represent them, trusting her to bridge the gap between their worlds. Dawn light broke over the eastern mountains, painting the snow gold and pink. The mob dispersed slowly, confused and shaken, but no longer angry, no longer afraid. Elspeth stood alone in the clearing with Magistrate Oswin, swaying on her feet. Her hybrid transformation had saved her life, but the cost was catching up. Exhaustion crashed over her like a wave. "Miss Ravencroft," the magistrate's voice gentled, "you should rest. Will there be a trial?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "There will be justice," he nodded slowly, "and perhaps understanding. The world is stranger than I thought." Elspeth's legs gave out. Strong arms caught her, Fenrir in human form now, naked but whole. He lifted her gently. "I've got you," he murmured. "We did it. You did it." As consciousness faded, Elspeth managed to smile. The bridge between worlds. Maybe she could be that. Maybe love was enough to build something new from the ashes of fear. She slept, surrounded by her pack, as the sun rose on a changed world.
Haven's Rest rose from the Winterwood like something out of legend. Stone cottages with thatched roofs stood beside structures built for creatures who shifted between 2 forms. Doors wide enough for werewolves, ceilings high enough to accommodate their towering frames. In the central square, human children laughed as they rode on the backs of patient wolves, while their parents traded goods with werewolves in human form at market stalls. 6 months had transformed fear into something beautiful. Elspeth stood on the settlement's watchtower, one hand resting on the gentle swell of her belly, watching the evening bustle below. Through the pack bond, she felt Fenrir approaching before she heard his footsteps. Their connection had only deepened since her transformation. "You're thinking of her again," he said softly, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Mother, they burned you for the gift." Elspeth's thoughts drifted to the charred stake in Thornhaven Square, to the 12-year-old girl who'd fled into these same woods. "But I'm using it to build bridges, not walls. I hope you're proud." "Always," she murmured. "She died for being different. Now difference is what holds us together." Below, Grimwald demonstrated blacksmithing techniques to a group of young werewolves who'd never needed to forge tools in their wolf forms. Nearby, human farmers learned tracking and hunting from Cyrus Pack, skills that would help them survive harsh winters. The exchange of knowledge flowed both ways, each species teaching what the other lacked. A commotion at the settlement's gates drew their attention. A delegation on horseback, their banners marking them as emissaries from Aldermarch, 3 kingdoms distant. The lead rider dismounted, mud-spottered and exhausted. "We seek Elspeth Ravencroft, the alpha female who made peace between wolf and man."
Elspeth descended the tower stairs, Fenrir at her side. The emissary bowed deeply. "My lady, werewolves have been discovered in our lands. The king prepares for war. We heard tales of what you achieved here and came seeking counsel. Please help us prevent the bloodshed." She looked at Syra, who'd grown so much in confidence these past months. The young werewolf met her gaze and nodded. "Take Syra and 3 of her pack as ambassadors. They'll teach your people what we've learned here. Fear ends where understanding begins, but your king must be willing to listen." "He will be," the emissary promised, "or I'll make him listen." As the delegation prepared to leave with their werewolf eyes, Magistrate Oswin arrived with his weekly report. Thornhaven's petition to join the alliance had been approved. Trade routes now connected the village to Haven's Rest, bringing prosperity to both. Aldric Blackwood rotted in prison, his family's timber business bankrupted and sold to pay restitution. Brother Theron had been defrocked after church investigators uncovered his corruption, exiled to a monastery where his zealotry could harm no one. "Justice," Oswin said with satisfaction, "has been served." But the day's true test came at sunset, when 3 ancient werewolves emerged from the forest. The Werewolf High Council, led by Morvana the Ancient, a creature so old she remembered when Rome still ruled, when the first Ravencroft Union sparked war between species. The settlement fell silent. Every werewolf dropped to one knee. They'd come to pass judgment on Fenrir for breaking the sacred law, for revealing their kind to humans, for transforming Elspeth against all prohibition. Morvana's eyes, gold as ancient coins, swept across Haven's Rest. She saw werewolves teaching humans, humans healing wounded wolves, children of both species playing without fear. Her gaze lingered on Elspeth, on the swell of her belly where the first natural-born hybrid grew. The ancient werewolf approached slowly, reaching out one clawed hand. "May I?" Elspeth nodded. Morvana placed her palm against Elspeth's stomach, closing her eyes. Through the pack bond, Elspeth felt what the elder sensed, the child's dual heartbeat, human and wolf intertwined, 2 species becoming one. Tears tracked down Morvana's furred face. The old prophecy was true. 1,000 years we've waited, afraid to hope. Her voice cracked with emotion. The bridge child will reunite our sundered peoples. What was torn apart by fear will be made whole by love. She turned to address the assembled crowd, human and werewolf alike. "I came to execute Fenrir for breaking our highest law. Instead, I find he has saved us all." Her voice rang with authority that commanded packs for centuries. "The old law is revoked. The world has changed. We change with it, or we die as relics of a fearful past." That night, Haven's Rest celebrated under the full moon. Humans and werewolves feasted together, shared stories, sang songs in languages both old and new. Elspeth and Fenrir slipped away to the watchtower as the festivities continued below. "Do you ever regret it?" Elspeth asked, leaning against his shoulder. "Revealing yourself, breaking their laws, everything you risked?" "Every day." Fenrir's honesty was gentle, without hesitation. "And you're worth any price." "We both paid in blood." She laced her fingers through his. "We both earned this peace." He kissed her forehead, then her lips. 7 years ago you freed me from a trap. Today you freed us all." The full moon rose higher, painting everything silver. As one they transformed, Elspeth into her hybrid form, still carrying hints of her humanity even in her wolf shape, and Fenrir into his magnificent werewolf form. Together they howled, and the pack answered from below. 47 voices, human and wolf, braided into one song. They leapt from the tower, landing lightly on the forest floor, and ran. Through the ancient pines, over snow-covered clearings, beneath stars that had witnessed 1,000 years of fear, finally giving way to hope. Pack ran with them, Grimwald and Syra, the northern wolves and coastal packs, and humans who'd learned to shift through Elspeth's gift, bridging the gap their ancestors had thought impossible. Fear builds walls between the different, the strange, the misunderstood, but love, true love, builds bridges strong enough to carry whole worlds across the divide. Sometimes the monster in the forest is just someone waiting for you to see them clearly, and sometimes becoming the monster is the only way to save the ones you love. Elspeth ran beside her mate, her pack, her family of 2 species made one, and knew her mother would be proud. The gift that had condemned Ravencrofts for generations had finally fulfilled its true purpose. Not division, but union. Not walls, but bridges. Not fear, but love strong enough to transform worlds.
Have you ever loved someone so different from you that the world said it was impossible? Have you ever been the outcast who found their pack? Tell us your story in the comments below. And remember, sometimes the greatest love stories are the ones that break all the rules. Thank you for listening to Elspeth and Fenrir's story. If you're going through a difficult time, if you've ever felt like an outcast or been persecuted for being different, I hope this story reminded you that your uniqueness isn't a curse, it's your greatest strength. The very things that make you different might be exactly what the world needs. You are not alone. You are worthy of love. And sometimes the family you choose and the bonds you forge are stronger than anything you were born into. If you enjoyed this medieval werewolf romance, please give this video a like. It helps more people discover these stories of courage and transformation. Leave a comment telling me which moment touched your heart most or what kind of story you'd like to hear next. And subscribe to the channel for more tales of forbidden love, found family, supernatural bonds, and the kind of love that's worth breaking every rule for. Remember, fear builds walls, but love builds bridges. Which will you choose?